good to go here. And so like Reggie mentioned, we're going to keep this webinar to about 20-25 minutes, and we're going to start to tackle a little bit about search engine marketing and what it is and kind of what it can do for you. I'm going to start out first by just throwing up a quick question that I'd like you to answer if you get a chance here before we get going. Has your practice tried to use pay-per-click marketing in the past, and kind of the story there? It's a quick multiple choice answer. If you can go fill that out for me, we will quickly get on to this webinar. And I promise, in the interest of time, we will keep it as close to 20 minutes as possible and then leave it open for some questions and take it from there. So we'll just wait that out another minute here. Okay. Happy holidays to everyone, and good afternoon to the East Coast, and good morning to the West Coast. Okay, so I think we're going to push on here, and let's talk a little bit about, quickly here, search engine marketing. So, in this webinar, we're basically going to cover these main topics. What is SEM? Where did it come from? How an SEM campaign works, and of course its value to you. That's ultimately the most important thing that we want to garner here. The most common misconceptions of SEM. It's a very popular topic, lots of questions that we get all the time about it. And of course what we do for SEM here at MedNet, and the agency advantage of why you'd want an agency, MedNet or otherwise, to manage it for you versus doing it yourself. So first, we'll talk a bit about what yesterday's advertising was. You know, back in the day, there was, in the world of yellow pages and, paper advertising, and as creative as advertising used to get was TV, radio, newspaper ads. But now today, everything is moving towards digital, towards mobile, websites, advertising through search engines, both through text ads, banner ads, display ads, things that we'll get into briefly over the course of this webinar, and also advertising through social media. So everything has moved into being digital. And all that kind of encompasses here the search engine marketing. And what is SEM? Basically just answer that question. No, contrary to popular belief, sometimes it does not mean spend extra money, although that's a misconception we'll certainly get to a little later on. What it actually stands for, search engine marketing, also has a bunch of aliases. You may have heard it as pay-per-click, PPC, paid ads, sponsored listings. These are all different ways of saying the same thing. And really, it boils down to being the only guaranteed way of getting your website placement within search results. And we can touch more on that later. But before we get into, what do we got here? Excuse me. Sorry about that. So let's talk about the history of SEM. So we know kind of what it is, what it means, and kind of where did it come from. So it really started, the concept of paid advertising through search started in the mid to late 90s. And Google, which is now the largest SEM platform, launched their AdWords, which is their version of SEM, in October of 2000 with only 350 live campaigns at the time. Fast forward to today, Google recently reported 2012 revenue of $50 billion. $50 billion, with 96% of that coming directly from the SEM platform AdWords. So if you want to know where Google makes all their money and how they've become this massive empire that they are today, it has been through their SEM platform AdWords. And this number is up $34 billion from what was reported in 2011. So in 2011, $34 billion, 96%, just around there from AdWords, up to 50, so it's up 16 billion in the course of a year, meaning more and more people are advertising through Google AdWords and through SEM. As I alluded to, where do you advertise with SEM? Well, Google contains 77% of all searches that happen on the web right now. That's the market share kind of pie chart, and you can see Bing has the second spot at 18%, and then Ask at AOL fill in the gaps there. But, advertising through Google is really where you want to be, and you can certainly put some budget into Bing, as we do here for our clients, so you can really encompass well over 90%, 95% of all search advertising. So for the interest of the rest of this webinar, we're going to talk about SEM through Google AdWords and their platform for obvious reasons. So with SEM, there's different types. There's mainly two different types. One is text ads, which we'll get into what they are, and the other are the banner ads, the display ads, with a cool feature called remarketing, which I'll get into quickly. So those are the two different types. First, let's talk about text ads. I'm sure you've all seen a typical Google search result and what it looks like. So maybe you're not so familiar with what all the different sections of Google search result represent. So here's a typical one that I performed for dentists in Long Island. You can see it's pretty self-explanatory. The SEM, the paid ads, are right here, usually the top 3 results, and the right side. This is the SEM areas of search. Then there's a map section based on the local business search that you perform, which is here and here. And then at the base starts the organic section, the SEO results. So this is your typical Google search result. And the SEM text ads are what you see right here. A title, a little catchy phrase here, and a link to your site. The second type of SEM ads that I alluded to is what's called banner ads, display ads. These are the images that you see show up sometimes when you're searching on a website. You see them at the top, the right, mixed in within the content. It's usually an image ad that if you click will take you to an offer on a website. And that's called display advertising through Google Content Network. So there's basically this vast array of websites where you can choose to advertise your banner ad on if you choose to do that type of SEM. And you can certainly pick certain sites that you want to be on and exclude yourself from others, so that you say you don't want your ad to show up on a website that has content that may not be something you're interested in showing up next to. You can exclude sites, or you can put specific sites. But the cool thing about this is it comes with something called remarketing. And I'm sure you've all been victim to this, and I have myself recently in looking on Babies R Us for my little one. I was looking at a crib, and I jumped off the website, and I went to check my Yahoo email, and sure enough, there's this big banner ad in there for the exact crib that I was looking at for Babies R Us with a special offer associated with it. So I click on it, and it takes me right back into what I was looking for. That's called remarketing. That's when someone is on your website, and then they're looking around and they leave your website. But if you're doing the remarketing, Google grabs their information through their cookies to know where they are and follows them, so that when they go somewhere else, it will throw your banner ad up next to them where they're looking, and continue to try to draw them back, to bring that traffic back to you. It's a very cool feature, and it actually works very well. So those are the two types of SEM. So now talking briefly about kind of how an SEM campaign works, since we know what one is and we know where it came from. In looking at that, it comes down to 5 simple steps, and I'm simplifying it for the purposes of this webinar. Each step gets much more in-depth, but for these purposes, the 5 steps are: you target your procedures and your services. You pick different topics that you want to market for. So it's not like your website where you're targeting everything on your site. With SEM, you pick maybe your main 3 or 5 procedures that are important to you, and we will go and market towards those. And you pick those out first, then you would select a geographical area. So you say, I want to kind of circle an area on a map and say, anyone who's within this region, I want to advertise to. Or you can pick specific cities, maybe a radius around your practice, so you have full capability of selecting A, what you want to market, and B, where you want to market it. So those are the first 2 things you do. Then you set a budget. And this is one of those misconceptions that we'll get into, where SEM can cost an arm and a leg, as some think. You can choose how much you want to spend. You pick a budget, how much you're comfortable spending over the course of a month. It divides by 30 days, and it sets a daily budget. And once you spend your daily budget, your ads will turn off and then turn on again the next day. And that's the simplest form of kind of how it works. So you set a budget, Then you create the ads. You create the text ads that we looked at, or if you're graphically inclined or have an agency do it for you, create a banner ad for you. And once you have the ads and all these other settings ready to go, you add the keywords in there that can help trigger the ads to display, and this is more so for the text ad side of things. So when someone does a search like that dentist in Long Island search that I was talking about, well, if you're targeting that and you're targeting that area and you want to be found by that keyword because you've added it into your campaign and all these things are done, then you'll show up in that search. And here's the same search minus the red boxes so you can see what it looks like, in clarity. So that's the search result you get essentially once you put all these factors in place and launch your campaign. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of how an SEM campaign works. So we're going to talk now about the value of SEM and kind of why you should do it and what it does for you. And one of the biggest values of SEM in comparison to SEO, for example, is location versus non-location searching. So what I mean is, if you remember the dentist search that I did in Long Island, here in the search bar I actually said dentist in Long Island. I had to type what I was looking for as a keyword and the location. But with SEM, it works if you do that, but you don't have to do that. If you're someone who's a searcher who's maybe not savvy enough or doesn't think to type the location, and you're just looking for a dermatologist and you just type dermatologist into Google, well, Google knows through the SEM platform the IP address of where that person is physically located. Even though they didn't type a location in, it knows that I am located in Long Island. So it's going to essentially return results to me for ads that have dermatologists that are targeting the market that I'm physically located in. So even though I didn't search for it, it still shows it to me. So the value here is you're not missing out on that traffic that didn't search by location. That's a big plus with SEM. Another value of SEM is its targeted traffic, and we kind of alluded to this where you pick the procedure that you want to target. You pick the geographic market that you want to target, and you draw people in that way. It's not a broad scope. And essentially, you're only paying for what you receive. So when I showed you those search results of those ads that are there and those people who had top placement with their ads, they didn't pay a dime to show up in that search result. That's called an impression. You don't pay for those with SEM. You're actually only charged when someone actually clicks on that ad and is taken to your website. And what you pay there is whatever the click cost is for that keyword search. And that is dependent upon the market and what you're targeting and where you're targeting and all those moving parts. But you don't actually pay anything for the impression and even the branding of seeing yourself at the top of the search results for that search. You're only charged when they click through. So you're paying for what you receive. And that's much different from, a billboard ad or a newspaper ad where, that newspaper is printed for whoever purchases it. And that billboard is on the highway no matter what car drives by. So you're going to get people that are interested and people that are not relevant. And that doesn't happen with SEM. It's really targeted traffic. And the last thing here is the calculating of ROI. And that's an important thing I know for a lot of us here is how do you calculate the value of your advertising and if it's working for you? It's hard to do that in a lot of platforms. But with SEM, you can really drill down. And I know there's a lot of moving parts, but here's kind of a rough example of what I mean by being able to calculate your ROI. So let's say that your practice charges $5,000, a nice round number, for procedure A, we'll call it. Okay, and you spend, say, $1,000 a month on an SEM advertising campaign for procedure A, trying to draw in new patients for this procedure. The industry standard says that about a 3% conversion rate is what you're going to get, meaning about 3% of all the people that are visiting your ad, clicks your ad, and goes to your site, about 3% of those people actually convert into leads for you, meaning they either pick up the phone and call you or they fill out a contact form. So that number would amount to about 30 leads per month for potential procedure A, patients. Now it gets to your office and your reception and your front desk and things that can happen with the potential patient. So we don't always get 100% closure. So let's be very conservative and say you only close, say, 10% of those leads that are coming to you. So that amounts, in this case, to, say, 3 surgeries for procedure A in this month at $5,000 a piece. That's $15,000 in dollar value minus the $1,000 SEM cost that you spent advertising for the service. So you take that off and you're down $14,000 profit. And again, I know there are moving parts with this, but this is just a rough estimate of how you can calculate ROI. And you have to remember that that number, $14,000 profit for the month, is not even calculating the potential referrals that you can receive from this patient and the lifetime value of this patient if you perform a procedure with them that they're satisfied with, and now they become your patient and they could be interested in doing something else down the line. So you have all of those to calculate as well. So there really is a lot of value that you can draw in from SEM. So moving on to the next main topic here, I think we're on 3 of 4, 5 common misconceptions that we encounter with SEM. And these are based on lots of different instances and questions that I've gotten over the years and that we're very familiar with in the industry. So the first, SEM costs too much. And I think I kind of debunked this by talking about the earlier slide where you can choose how much you want to spend. Sure, if you're, say, a plastic surgeon and you're in Beverly Hills or you're in Manhattan and a dermatologist in Manhattan and you want to target someone for Botox or something like that, it has its ways where there's so much activity out there where it can cost a lot of money if you choose to spend that much money because there's that much activity out there. But you ultimately put your own cap on however much you want to spend and however aggressive you want to be. So it only costs as much as you're comfortable spending. And then there's this kind of caveman feeling that SEM is spammy, and these are spammy ads. This is actually not true at all because, as I've told you in the earlier slides, Google has made $50 billion on these ads because everyone is using them, and the more people that are clicking on these ads are action-oriented, and they're looking to convert, they're looking to find you. Back when they first rolled out, nobody really knew what they were, so everyone said, ooh, what's that? It's not in my Google search results. Is that a virus? Is that spam? It's absolutely not the case. It's people who are aggressive marketers that want to be known as authorities in search. The third misconception, my competitors are clicking on my ads. Well, this is one that we get a lot because if you are a dentist and you have 3 other competitors in the same town and they are searching on Google and they see your ad, they say, oh, that's my competitor. What's he doing up there? And if anyone has an idea of what SEM is, they're going to click on the ad and think they're going to cost you money. They're going to run through your budget, and they're going to knock your ad off and cost you a lot of money, and you're not getting anything for it. Well, of course, Google goes to great lengths to make sure that this does not happen. They have a robust click fraud detection system. With the amount of money that they draw in from this service, if they weren't protected against this type of click fraud, it would have failed a long time ago. And the way that they protect themselves is just like they know the IP address of where you're searching from in terms of showing a relevant ad, they also know the IP address of the person who clicks. And if it comes from the same area multiple times, Google quickly calls it a quote-unquote invalid click and puts it into an invalid click report and just filters that ad spend out and puts it right back into your budget so you're credited. So there is no issue of losing, your ads to the competition by them clicking through it. And if something were to ever slip through, you can always, that you feel Google may have missed, you can always file a manual review directly with them. And then it's one of the few times that you can get Google to respond to something is through the support of their AdWords because it is, a large money maker for them. The fourth misconception, SEM advertising will tarnish my reputation. And I think this is kind of linked with the whole spammy ads misconception, but it's the reality is the people who search and manage pay-per-click ads are, again, authorities in search. These are people that want to be shown multiple times. So if you have yourself listed in the local maps area, if you have yourself listed organically in the SEO area, and you're also listed in the paid advertising area, that's multiple listings potentially on the first page of search. So if someone is looking for a doctor in their area or that performs a service that they're looking for, and they see you 3 times on the first page, you're actually telling them that you're an authority for that, not that it's tarnishing your reputation in any way. It actually works SEM in the exact opposite. We have clients that, may have reputation issues out there, and they want to kind of bump down some negative reviews that they see showing up in Google. Well, the easiest way you can do that is to draw eyes to an ad promoting yourself through pay-per-click that shows up right at the top, above anything negative. And that doesn't cost a lot of money either, because it's your name that you're searching, so it's not something that is as competitive as a facelift or liposuction or teeth whitening. So a lot of people use it to kind of correct reputation. And the fifth and final misconception is doing pay-per-click can improve my organic SEO rankings. So there's a thought out there that people say, oh, SEO rankings and ranking in Google is so important that maybe if I advertise with them and I spend money in pay-per-click, they'll bump my organic ranking up because I'm spending money with them and they'll give me a break. That absolutely doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. The two are completely separate, and the SEM advertising you do, how big or small, has no impact on SEO rankings. And actually, this leads me to a quick point that I want to make, where it's important to know that for some of us out there, SEM is really the only viable option to getting your website ranking in Google. If you're a new practice or a young coming out of school, or even if you're middle of your career and you just haven't marketed on the web before and haven't advertised, and now you want to get started with a website and some marketing and some SEO, and if you're in any of the major cities, or you have an objective of targeting larger cities across the country, no matter where you are in the country, odds are you're behind the 8 ball when it comes to SEO, because it's been around now 12 years or more of people aggressively marketing with SEO. In the Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, Chicago, Manhattan, I mean, the same people you see in search, and I'm sure you get frustrated by it, these are the same people that have aggressively marketed for years. And if you want to get yourself some exposure and try to get some business fairly quickly, the SEO game is not the answer for you. It's a long-term strategy, and one that is not ever going to guarantee you anything and could be quite frustrating. Not that it's not good to do. Absolutely it is, and we'll have future webinars on SEO, but it's not the right answer when you need to get that exposure right away, or you're looking to get that exposure for a specific procedure, something that you're really specializing in, or a special offer that you have that's limited time. This is where SEM is your option to guarantee you that you're going to get in the mix with everyone else. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about, as we're getting to wind down on the webinar, the agency advantage. So why would you want to have an agency like MedNet, or any agency for that matter, handling your SEM campaign versus you doing it yourself? Because it's something, in all transparency, you can absolutely do it yourself through Google. You can set up your AdWords campaign and try it on your own and self-manage it. But there are values to having agencies do it, and here's some of those. As Reggie mentioned, agencies that can hold their weight are certified professionals, certified by Google in AdWords. MedNet is one of those agencies. I myself am a certified Google professional, and as are my team here in the department. What does that mean? That means that it's not because we spend a lot of money on Google and they give us this fancy title. No. That means that we have to pass an exam every year, a 2-hour exam by Google in AdWords, and every year, because it's new changes to AdWords happen all the time, to make sure that we are up on what's going on, and we obviously obtain our certification and then maintain it by passing this exam, this 2-hour exam every year, so that we can be credible in Google's eyes as someone who's got their stamp that can effectively advertise through them. So you want to look for that, for that with any agency you sign on to. There are many advanced settings that you need to be aware of with SEM. A lot of them beyond the quick, let me throw the keywords in, create an ad, launch my campaign. I've seen so much money thrown away by campaigns that were mismanaged because there's settings that you're not aware of turning on or taking advantage of. The most rampant of which is something called negative keywords, which I've highlighted in here. And just in a nutshell, what that means is, you enter keywords that you want to be found for, but you also should enter keywords that you don't want to be found for. Because take, for example, in the plastic surgery world, you do different procedures that involve nudity sometimes, and you have before and after pictures on your site that have nudity, and you run ads for these procedures. Well, if you don't put the certain negative keywords in, you're liable to get a lot of traffic for people that are just online searching for nudity or pornographic material, and they'll be clicking through your ads and costing you a lot of budget for things that are not at all relevant to what you're trying to achieve. And so there's ways to get around that by filtering negative keywords and other advanced settings, and that's one of the main things that you want to pay attention to. With any agencies do it on their own, but if you're trying it on your own by yourself at the practice, you want to be aware of that. Another agency advantage, advanced reporting, call tracking, call recording. So if you're doing it on your own, you more than likely are only utilizing the simple reports that come with AdWords. How many clicks did you get? How many impressions did you get? What's my click-through rate? And maybe how many conversions, how many forms were filled out. About 3 or 4 metrics that come with AdWords. But with what we have here at MedNet, we have an advanced reporting dashboard that you can log into 24/7 with tons of metrics and reports based on lots of data, not only about the click, which is pretty much where AdWords ends on their reporting, but what happens after the click. What did those people who clicked your ad do when they got on your website, and where did they go, and what kind of interaction did they have with you? And what's even more important than that is you have an account manager here that is equipped to walk you through that and explain it to you and go over it with you, so you're not just logging into this dashboard and you're lost in this data. So you have all of that. And then call tracking, call recording happens with some of our higher packages that we offer. Call tracking is basically, aside from someone filling out the contact form from your ad, we also put a phone number up there, a different phone number than your regular practice line, but it forwards right to that line, that we track the phone calls that come from the campaign. So we can tell you both how many people filled out a contact form and how many people called you directly related to that campaign. Again, another way you can start to loop in the whole ROI example. And if you have call tracking, we also offer the option of call recording. We don't implement this by default. It's only if you ask for it, and of course there's no extra cost. But call recording allows you the ability to not only track that a phone call happened at this day and time to your practice, but it records that call. So here you can learn not only am I getting the call, but what's happening with the call. Is something happening at my front desk where I'm losing the patient? Is there a miscommunication? Is there something I need to know about? And it really, here's an example of how SEM could really help you with things in the office, not even counting the ad or the procedure or the business. You can really get a grip on what's going on in your office as kind of a secondary value. And lastly here on this slide, landing pages. What happens when you create an ad and someone clicks on it, it takes them to a page. Where does it take them? A page of your website. Most often, you would hope the relevant page of your website that talks about what the ad is advertising. But a landing page is kind of the next step in that evolution. It's a targeted page that hopefully gives the potential patient that's searching everything they want to know about you on that one page, so that they don't lose their focus and click around into your site and click off your site. Maybe they'll see your Facebook icon and they'll click that and then they'll be taken somewhere else, and they completely forgot about why they were there to begin with. And the internet does that all the time. So the idea of a landing page is this one page that they land on from the ad that contains everything the person would need to know to hopefully reach out to you based on that page. Usually this involves, obviously, your contact information, a picture of the doctor, maybe a quick bio, a paragraph on the doctor, a little bit about the procedure, the special offer, a before and after picture if it's relevant, why they should come to you for this service. Those are the types of things, kind of 3 to 4 main things you want to include on a landing page so they can get all that information and feel comfortable enough at least reaching out to schedule a consultation. And that's a landing page. And those are included as well as the higher packages that have call tracking, call recording. Of course, you can always purchase landing pages separately, but they do come with the larger plans. And I'll get into a quick review of our plans towards the end of this webinar. So the wrong way of doing an SEM campaign, if you're going to do it on your own, real quick, a way that we always see it happening is you take thousands of keywords, and I'm using a non-medical example here because I really want the concept to be understood by, all of us and something we can all relate to rather than getting too inside on any one medical specialty. Let's talk about a pest control company. If you're going to run an SEM campaign, you take thousands of keywords for all the different services you provide, and you drop them into this one bucket where you create one ad, very general, and you throw that one ad to land on your home page. And yes, the ABCs of it are here so that you can launch the campaign without getting flagged. But is this efficient? Not at all. It's very general. You're leaving yourself wide open to lots of unwanted traffic, and you're not really directing anyone specifically to what they're looking for. And when you do things like this, it can lead to lots of wasted ad spend. And recently there was a Newsday article I came across that I wanted to share. I threw this slide in last minute because I just happened to come across it. It's based on a study on SEM and small businesses that says a typical small business spends about $1,200 a month on PPC advertising, but wastes about 25% of that on avoidable errors. Things like that slide I just showed you. Now the question becomes, wouldn't you rather spend that money on ensuring that your campaign is set up and running properly versus tossing that money away through poorly set up campaigns? And that's what agencies do for you. That's what our agency fee is all about. Because the money you spend on your advertising goes to Google. So the fee that you pay an agency to run the service for you and monitor all this and take care of this so that it doesn't happen is the agency fee. And that's the investment to you. It's saving you on the mistakes you more than likely would make if you try to run the campaign on your own. So talk a lot about what you shouldn't do. I can tell you briefly what we do for these types of things, what we do. It's an example of that here. Let's take that same pest control example. You take these thousands of keywords that you want to market, and you drop them into more relevant buckets depending upon, and these are called ad groups, depending upon what specific service you want to advertise for. And you can see the different ones. And within each ad group, you now create a specifically focused ad about that subtopic. And I only have one ad here for the sake of showing you this example, but what we do is create 3 different ads for each ad group. And we run them all evenly initially. And we see which ones perform better. And then we take that one that's performing better and we run that one all the time. So it's called optimizing your ads. And when you do that, for each one, you send them directly to the page on your website or the landing page that talks specifically about this service that you want to market, not the bunch of keywords to one ad that's very general, to the home page of your site that's very general. So you want to be very targeted here, and this helps you get the most efficient use out of your SEM campaign. Some other things that we do as an agency, more on those advanced settings that you don't always take advantage of, something known as site links. If you ever done a search and you see a pay-per-click ad like these right here, you see one sometimes that has additional links within the ad. So someone searches to rent a tent, and maybe they want to know about a dance floor rental. Maybe that's something on the back of their mind, or maybe there's something more targeted to them that they're interested in that they didn't quite search it that way. But if they don't see it here and it doesn't look enticing enough, they're going to skip over it. Oh, but here, I want to see this. This is what I'm looking for, and they click in. And that's called a site link. It helps the searchers find the pages they are looking for faster. It gives you additional links within your ad. It's almost like a 2-for-1. And it's just a setting that you have to enable and add into your campaign that you otherwise more than likely don't even know exists. Site links typically see a 20% increase in click-through rate on PCs and a 30% increase in click-through rate on mobile devices. And why is it that much on mobile? Well, because mobile site links include a telephone number that can give the user an easy access to contact the business. So if you're accessing this pay-per-click ad from your mobile device and you click it, you press it with your finger, it brings up the phone number, and it gives you that little pop-up box that you can call right away. And I know we've all utilized that, maybe with restaurants or different things, and that takes you right there to that conversion. Anything else that we do? This is the last thing I was going to touch on here on the agency side of things, is something called ad scheduling. And what this is you can basically tell when you want to run your ads in search. You can pick the times and the days of the week. Usually, we run them initially all the time, 24/7. We take a look at the data after a month and see when are you getting the most relevant clicks, the most active clicks, or the most conversions. What days and times are those? Is there a pattern? And if we establish a pattern, we can then schedule the ads to only run during those times so that you can get the maximum use out of your budget for what your spend is. And in this example, we've actually tied it into when are you getting the most calls with the call tracking. An example of what one of those call tracking reports talk about, the days of the week and the times of day that you're getting the most calls to your office. And if you want to run your ads during that time frame to maximize calls to the office, you certainly have that ability. So that's the example I was showing here. There's so much that you can do with these campaigns to really target it to the way that you want. And as we get towards closing out here, the last couple of slides, I did just want to briefly go over what our MedNet SEM pricing is and a little bit about that. So here is the information sheet, and you can see the different levels of service that are included within each one and the different frequency at which we do things for each one. Important here to see the setup fee, the one-time setup to build the campaign for you, and then the monthly fee. And this is the bottom line monthly fee that you pay inclusive of your ad spend and our agency fee. It's everything in one. So if you were on the silver plan, you would be charged $500 a month, and that would include your ad spend and the agency fee. It's the one solid fee that you get every month. And you don't have to be within these hard budgets. In other words, if you wanted to spend $800 a month, you would fall within the silver level because you haven't hit the $1,000 threshold to become a gold. So you could certainly spend $800 a month and be under silver. Once you hit 1,000, you'd be under gold, and you would receive everything that's included here. So that's kind of how our plans work. And the gold level, as I mentioned earlier, is where the landing page creation begins, and the call tracking and call recording is included, starting at the gold level. And so that's a quick outline of the MedNet SEM packages that we have. Today, as a special offer for joining in on this webinar, and because of the holidays, we will gladly waive the setup fee completely for all webinar attendees that purchase one of our SEM packages by the end of the year. So if you sign on by 12/31, we'll waive that setup fee completely, and essentially we will build the campaign and do everything for you like we always would. And really the first dime that you're going to spend is going to be your ad spend towards trying to grow the business. So really nothing to lose here. And this is our special offer for signing on by the end of the month. And if you're interested in more information on that and doing that, I recommend absolutely getting in touch with your account representative or just giving the MedNet offices a call, and we can certainly walk you through that a little further. And as I'm getting ready to close out, I'd like to open it up here a second for any questions that you may have. 1 second here. See if I can open the line. Whoop. Where did that, lost my monitor screen here. There we go. Throw up another poll here while we get into the Q&A. Bear with me here. Just going to throw up another poll question, and we'll open it up for any questions that you have.
Yes, that would be here.
Let's see.
Okay, you have to raise your hand if they have any questions. If they raise their hand, you can just take the floor.
There we are. So does anyone have any questions for me today on this webinar? Anything I can help you with?
The raise hand button.
Just hit the raise hand button, and I'll gladly answer it. Okay. Okay, Gabriel? Okay, Gabriel, you have a question? Okay, maybe not. Are there any other questions today on the SEM webinar? Okay. Sarita, do you have a question? Sarita, do you have a question? Okay. Last call for questions on today's webinar. Okay. I will take that as no questions today. If you do have any questions after the call, you can certainly, yes, Laverne,
There you go.
okay, I'm getting some questions here now. They're coming in. I'll answer them for you. Will the recorded session become available to share with staff? Yes, we will make it available within a few days, and we will let you know through an email where you can access the session so that you can review it again and share it on. Okay. Typically, how long does this take to set up? So the setup of the campaign, if you were to do it with MedNet, once you provide us the initial information that we need to build the campaign and then get your approval on it to launch, we can have a turnaround there within a week to week and a half and then get it right up. Now, if there's a landing page involved that has to be custom made, that sometimes can take about 2 weeks to do in and of itself, but you don't have to wait for the landing page to launch before the campaign launches. We can work that into the campaign if you're eager to get it going quicker. So yeah, we're looking at about a week and a half turnaround with cooperation on your behalf. Let's see, next question. Just to be clear, the monthly fee does not include the PPC costs. The monthly fee is a combination of everything. That's the only fee that you're charged. You are charged our agency fee, which is 30%, and the other 70% is your ad spend. So on a $1,000 gold plan at the base level, you would be talking $700 towards your ad spend and $300 towards the MedNet agency fee. And that $1,000 one charge of $1,000 would be the only charge you'd see on your monthly bill, and it would be that same charge every month. Happens at the beginning of the month, and then we spend the budget over the course of that month. Okay, are there any other questions? All right. As everyone, I remind you that the poll is on the screen. Leaving it up for about another 30 seconds. If you haven't answered the poll question, I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Another question coming in. Yes. Okay. Great question. Do we need a contract for a certain amount of time, or can we do month to month? So the way our SEM is packaged is it is a 6-month minimum commitment for the campaign, and after you've reached your 6-month commitment, you will maintain month to month until you wish to stop. So you have to do at least 6 months, and then you can stop it right after that, or you can let it go month to month until you want to stop it. What you can do, though, within your 6-month commitment, if you want, is you do have the ability to pause the campaign. So if you're coming up on a slow time of year and it doesn't make sense to run the campaign, we can pause it for you for a few months, and then you can renew it again. As long as you ultimately meet your 6-month commitment of running the campaign, you can certainly turn it on and off. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to close this poll, and I promise this is the last poll I'm going to throw up, and we will be all done for today. Last poll, and I'll entertain more questions while this last poll is up if you have any. please feel free to send them through. Okay. So the poll is up, and I will look here for any other questions that I can help you with. I'll be glad to answer them. Okay, just going to wait about another 30 seconds for anyone else who needs to fill out the poll for us. We're about halfway through on that. Okay, last call for questions on today's webinar. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to close this poll. Okay, and thank you for your participation in that poll. And I am now going to, again, I want to thank you for your time today, and I'm going to turn this webinar over to Reggie, who you spoke to at the beginning of the webinar. And in closing for me, I really hope that, you know, if nothing else, you take the knowledge necessary to know what this tool is and how you can best utilize it. Whether you choose to do that with MedNet or on your own, you know, we value you as clients of MedNet, and we want you to know that this is a very viable way of continuing to market your practice and grow your business, and it's something you should certainly take advantage of. And we really look forward to helping you with that and working with you going forward should you so choose. At this point, I'm going to step aside and hand it back to Reggie.
Thank you, John. I'm sure that you benefited from the information that you just received from John. And as John indicated, to demonstrate our appreciation today for joining the webinar, we would like to make sure that you take advantage of our special offer to have a free month, the free setup, free waived for an SEM campaign if you purchase by the end of this year. So in the next few days, your sales consultant is going to contact you to discuss the SEM plans that we have. So in conclusion, on behalf of the entire MedNet organization, I'd like to thank you again for joining the webinar today, and please have a wonderful and safe holiday season. Take care now. Bye-bye.